I'm just going to be playing 4 pieces for you today. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about each one before I begin, just what it means to me and kind of about a little bit about the music. So I'll be beginning with a piano sonata by Beethoven. You might have heard of him. And it's his second to last sonata that he ever wrote. And his piano sonatas are basically these works of music that have multiple movements, kind of like little pieces that make up a larger whole that you're supposed to play, in one sitting. But this particular piece is special because most of the time when you play a sonata, you have to you take a little pause, a little break between each movement. But this one is meant to be played continuously. And for its time, early 1800s, that was kind of a new thing, it wasn't as usual. But this gives the music a very kind of searching feeling, and it's been one of my favorite pieces. It begins with this melody that you'll hear actually at the very end, and it begins kind of subtle, maybe a little innocent, gets a little lively in the middle, and then it'll become much more introspective, and all the tension that he builds throughout the whole piece will just explode at the end in this huge, musical fireworks almost. So I hope that you enjoy. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Okay. So for the next piece I'll be playing, it's going to be a prelude by the composer Sergei Rachmaninoff. Some of you may have heard that name as well. He wrote some very famous music. And this particular prelude, the preludes, first of all, are a set of 12 or maybe 22, no, 24. It's a number. It's like over 20. But they're all kind of like 3, 4, 5, 6-minute long pieces, each one with a very particular mood in a particular key. And this one in B minor was actually Rachmaninoff's favorite. He loved playing this, and it's inspired by this painting of this big, like, rock mountain island thing in the middle of the ocean. It's a very kind of ominous painting. But more so, to me, this is actually the music that made me really, or the piece, one of the pieces, but probably the main piece that made me really want to do music with my life. I learned this with Mrs. Zuckerman there in the back, and she taught it to me, and I was like in 8th grade or something, and it just had such an effect on me. It's just such a beautiful piece. It begins very tragic, but in the middle, there's like this huge crescendo. It's immense, almost as if like you're trying to overcome whatever tragedy there is, but at the end, it's all for nothing. So it's kind of a moody piece, but I love it. It's very beautiful. So hope you enjoy. Thank you. That one always gets me. Very beautiful. So the next two pieces I'll be playing are by Claude Debussy. You might have know that name from the famous piece Clair de Lune. If you don't know the name of it, that one. Yeah, everybody knows that, right? Right. So this is from a collection of pieces he wrote called Images, which each one is supposed to, well, first of all, Debussy was writing music around the time of the Impressionist art movement, so artists like Monet, that general style of where they use a lot of brush strokes to create the impression of something, right? And so Debussy was inspired by this kind of communication of images in ways that are kind of vague. You kind of you're trying to express the qualities of something more so than the specific image, if that makes sense, right? So these two pieces, the first one is Reflections in the Water, translates to Reflections in the Water. It's about all the different colors and ripples that you might see in like a pond, on like a afternoon or like before the sun's setting, and all the beautiful light of the trees above are kind of like reflecting off of it, all those little points of light and everything. It's a very sort of calm, beautiful piece. And then the second one is called just Movement. And people don't really know exactly what it's about, but the greatest estimation is that at the time that Debussy wrote it, there was a lot of kind of new technical innovations happening, things like clocks and gears and stuff, And so people theorize, or other musicians theorize, he was trying to express that with that music. It's very kind of mechanical, circular sort of feeling to it. And both of these pieces I have a particular relationship with because my mom, who's sitting right there, she used to, when I was like super young, there was this CD she used to play, and it had recordings of this. And so it's something I always remember in my subconscious. While I'm trying to sleep, I mean, like I was being like a toddler trying to sleep, and she would play me the Debussy music. So anyways, hope you enjoy. Thank you. So the final piece I'll be playing is going to be the fourth piano sonata by Scriabin, Alexander Scriabin. Some of you might not know about him, so I'll just explain a little bit about who Alexander Scriabin was. And Alexander Scriabin was actually a classmate of Rachmaninoff, actually, when they both went to the music school together. But whereas, as you heard, Rachmaninoff I played earlier before the Debussy, it was much more kind of like lyrical, you know, much more immense in a very heavy way. Scriabin's music kind of takes a different turn. It's much more mystical. You know, he was very fascinated with how color played into musical harmony of different chords that you would play, and he claimed to be have a synesthesia. You know, so when you hear a sound, he would see like a certain color. You know, so the music throughout his life, it starts off sounding like Chopin a lot, but then throughout his life, it just turns into this really beautiful, weird, mystical thing, you know. This piece I'm about to play is halfway through that journey for him. It's when he really starts to diverge from anything that anybody had ever heard. And so this particular piece, it's based off a poem he wrote about wanting, like yearning to reach this star up in the sky, you know, and the euphoria of finally, like you're dreaming of it, and then finally you reach the star, you know. And it's a very metaphorical thing too, you know. I don't know if he was actually planning on going to space. I doubt it. But he was really committed to this idea. I've read through the poem. It's not a very good poem, but the sentiment of it is very beautiful, very beautiful. The piece opens with a slow introduction with this kind of, you know, reflective melody that kind of just ascends a little bit and comes down. And it's this melody you'll hear at the very end of it, but in a very loud, you know, climax of just complete euphoria and everything, you know. And in between that, after the slow introduction, it'll turn into this very kind of joyful, but it's not just happy. It's like there's almost a nervousness to it, you know, of like eagerness, I think is a good way to put it, you know. But it's my first year at USC during my undergraduate, I heard a fellow pianist, his name was Feng Bian. He's in China right now teaching, I believe. But he played this during one of our workshops where all the students get together and we play for each other. And it knocked my socks off. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to learn this. And 4 years later, I'm able to. So I hope you enjoy.
often that we get to hear a beautiful piano concert and understand what the pieces mean to the artist. So I had 3 questions that inspired. One, you said you were quite a young person when you learned the Rachmaninoff, and there's a lot of pathos to that. And we grow in our understanding of what that means. So I'm interested to know how that piece has changed for you as you've matured as a person and in the world. That's one question. And then another, well, and maybe some other people, but I was also noticing some really interesting similarities between, like, in the Debussy, I heard what would to me sound a little Gershwin, things like that, or and almost musical theater, sophisticated musical theater in that. And I was interested, wanted to know if you would talk about that. But certainly, I mean, using the Rachmaninoff as an example, pieces that you've been playing for quite some time now, how have they changed for you?
That's a great question. I think, well, specifically with the Rachmaninoff, I think that for me at first, it was just an eye-opening example of like what music could express, So it definitely meant something to me, I mean, like when we're around that 13, 14, 15 age, we get a little angsty, It happens, So it meant something to me then, but I think now it's one of those pieces that becomes kind of a refuge for me. If I'm really struggling with something, if I'm really, I don't know. It's like, even though it is an expression of something quite tragic, it's almost empowering in a way to play something like that. And so I think with a lot of the pieces I've learned at an earlier age, not only have I learned more about like the musical details in them, of course, and like new things that I can hear and ways I can express it, but from a personal level, they're kind of places for me to go, I guess. If that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Any questions? Just
I just so impressed because Andrew played it so many years ago, and I can tell you that it was so complete for me to hear that you're an artist. I mean, there is everything that I ever meant him to express. It was there, and he did it on his own. Because sure, when he was a teenager, you can wish, you can see, but he was a kid, and now he's a mature adult. And Andrew, your performance was like from beginning to the end. Oh wow!
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
I was watching your eyes and your shoulders. I was watching the body language as you were performing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can put your finger on what goes through you. I mean, it's like you're channeling the composer as you are playing. Are you thinking about, I mean, are you transported? It seems like you are not in your own body when you're playing these.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. It's an interesting experience because I still feel grounded and in control for the most part, depending on how hard it is. But I still feel pretty grounded, like I'm aware I'm playing an instrument, but like it's a hard thing. It sounds very vague, but it's like the music begins to speak through me, like you say, really. It's just something that's just like, for whatever reason, all these combinations of sounds that come out of this instrument or any other instrument have an effect on, a different effect on all of us, right? It's like buried into our subconscious. So for me, that's like that, all that stuff in there that can relate to that. It just consumes me. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I guess. Yeah.
How does a mom feel to see this?
Very proud, and I realize how much work he's put in over the years too, and it's very rewarding to see him enjoying it. Yes, amazing. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
Andrew, you belong to Tchaikovsky competition, when collaborative competition. You have to be one of the gold. Well, maybe, well, gold.
Something.
I can't tell you how proud I am.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
And thank for all that you give to us, and that you'll continue. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be lying if everybody didn't sort of feel like he's staying in California. You know what I mean? California, that
Yeah.
was a very exciting moment for Temple Beth Tikvah, even though I understand that there are things waiting for you on the horizon. I want to just say thank you first of all to Rabbi Miriam, to Sue, to everybody who made this whole weekend, this Shabbos possible. It was really the best Shabbos ever. I just think we just had such a great array of humanity and artistry and learning. And for all of you who love Andrew, you'll be able to watch him and watch him grow. And it's wonderful to have you here. So thank you. One big clap.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.